What up, I be in the building, and we back for another video. Now I'm back with, or no, I'm not back with, this is the first video of its kind on my channel. It's going to be my first NBA ranking video, and the category that we're ranking is going to be NBA point guards. My top 10 point guards, primarily based off of this year. Yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. Actually, before I start my ranking, I want to start with a couple of honorable mentions. John Wall, Kyrie Irving, and Stephen Curry. They're not going to be in the top 10 for me because they didn't really play that much this season due to injury. John Wall hasn't played much in the past 3 years. Kyrie Irving only played 20 games this year. I don't think that was enough for me to gauge where he is in the ranking. And Stephen Curry, I think he played less than 10 games. So yeah, those 3 players won't be in my ranking. So don't give me an unnecessary dislike just because I didn't mention those 3. So now, having said all of that, let's get into the actual ranking. At number 10, actually, I have another disclaimer to drop. I couldn't really come up with a clear-cut number 10. I kind of have 3 players that I envision as somewhat tied for that 10 spot in De'Aaron Fox, Ja Morant, and D'Angelo Russell. Out of those 3, they're all young point guards coming up in the league, but they bring 3 different types of skill sets. In my opinion, De'Aaron Fox is the most athletic out of the 3. He's the fastest, probably the fastest point guard in the league. He's really bouncy. He's just an athletic freak of nature. Also, in my opinion, he has the highest defensive potential out of the 3. De'Aaron Fox averaged about 20 points a game and 7 assists. He didn't shoot greatly from 3 this year. He shot really well from 3 last year at 37% last year. This year he's shooting around 31% from 3, which I'm not too alarmed at. I think he'll get back to shooting slightly above league average next year. And the team success of the Kings was pretty underwhelming, especially with Luke Walton coming in to the coaching spot. I blame a lot of that on him, but also injuries came into play with Marvin Bagley being in and out of the rotation. Even De'Aaron Fox was injured for some of the season. So the team success can't really be put on De'Aaron Fox's back. I think the Kings team in general was just really hampered by injuries and coaching. On the other hand, you have Ja Morant, who came in the league rookie year. He's probably going to be the rookie of the year, averaging about 17 points and 7 assists. While he's not scoring as much as De'Aaron Fox, he is shooting better from 3, and his Grizzly team is closer to the playoff hunt. They're actually in the playoff seeding as of right now. They're the 8th seed, and the Kings are 10th or 11th. So team success is on Ja Morant's side, and in my opinion, I think he is the best playmaker between him, De'Aaron Fox, and D'Angelo Russell. And speaking of D'Angelo Russell, he hasn't seen any team success this year, going from the Golden State Warriors to playing 10 games with the Wolves. Hasn't seen any team success. That's really not his fault, but I don't think he has as much upside as Ja Morant and De'Aaron Fox, though he is clearly the best shooter out of the 3 from three-point land, and he's honestly the best mid-range shooter as well. Kind of the more skilled shot creator out of the 3, in my opinion, is D'Angelo Russell, but he also has the lowest defensive potential. He's not really a great defender right now, and I don't think he ever really will be. Hopefully he can get to about being an average defender, and he's not really explosive or athletic, and especially when you're getting compared to 2 athletic point guards like De'Aaron Fox and Ja Morant, that's really going to stand out for you. But if I had to choose one player to put at this number 10 position for point guards, I would say it's De'Aaron Fox as of right now. Moving to the 9 through 7 seeding, I have the young sophomore phenom point guard Trey Young at number 9. Now, Trey Young actually just went off this year, averaging about 29 points and 9 assists. He is an offensive weapon, and he is the offense for that Atlanta Hawks team. Without him, I don't even want to think about what that Atlanta Hawks offense would look like. Whether he's scoring it himself from downtown, he's shooting about 9 threes a game on 36% from there, or he's dishing it off. I think he's top 5 in assists at 9 assists per game. He's literally been the Atlanta Hawks offense, and you've got to reward that, especially with a player being in his 2nd year and being on a horrible Atlanta Hawks team where basically nobody can create for themselves besides Trey Young, and he's creating for himself and for his teammates. This metric proves just how valuable Trey Young is to Atlanta's offense. Without Trey Young on the floor, the Atlanta Hawks offense plummets 14 offensive rating points. 14. That's ridiculous. And he was an all-star starter this year. Not only an all-star in his second year, an all-star starter. And given his flashy play and his high box score numbers, he was bound to get that all-star starting nod. All the praises that I've sung for Trey Young have come on the offensive side of the ball. And there's a reason for that. He is the worst defender in the league according to most defensive metrics. Defensive box plus minus, defensive net rating. And if you just watch an Atlanta Hawks game and you use the eye test, it's clear cut that he is really bad defensively. And honestly, he's never gonna really be good defensively because of his limited stature. I alluded to this in my Atlanta Hawks team breakdown. But given that he's like one of the worst perimeter defenders in the league, that's kind of gonna hurt his rating or his ranking in terms of top point guards in the league. At the number 8 spot, coming in above Trey Young, I have his Eastern Conference All-Star starting counterpart, Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker is similar to Trey Young in this aspect. He's an offensive point guard, kind of undersized, great shooter, great shot creator, decent facilitator, but he's always going to be limited on the defensive side of the ball. Why do I have him coming in at above Trey Young? Well, being on a Boston Celtics team, his points per game numbers are obviously going to dip. I think in Charlotte the year before, he averaged like around 27 points per game. I have him coming in at Trey Young, ahead of Trey Young by 1 spot, because he's not as much of a defensive liability, and he's actually he's given a lot of effort on defense this year for Boston, and that comes when you're being on a winning team. In Charlotte, there wasn't really much to play for, playoff-wise, championship-wise, but going into Boston, he actually has something to play for, and he has a reason to try his ass off on defense, and that's shown this year. He's only averaging about 21 points per game and 5 assists per game, but like I said, going to a team like Boston that's loaded with talent, having the emergence of Jason Tatum as maybe a top 20 player in the league, Jaylen Brown is taking a step forward, Gordon Hayward is kind of returned to the Utah Jazz Gordon Hayward, Kemba Walker's numbers were bound to take a hit. So for the main reason that Kemba Walker just isn't as much of a defensive liability as Trey Young, I have him coming over Trey Young at the number 8 ranking. Now to round out the 9 through 7 tier, I have a player who's basically the antithesis of what Kemba Walker and Trey Young are. I have Ben Simmons at number 7. Now, I recently did a Philadelphia 76ers team breakdown in which I talked about Ben Simmons in depth, but I'll keep this quick. He's a great athlete. He's a 6'10" point guard, for crying out loud, and he moves like a guard, having center size. On the offensive side of the ball, he is a great to elite, bordering on elite passer, getting about 8 assists per game, and he's an incredibly efficient scorer. He's getting about 17 to 18 points per game on around 60% from the field. He gets all of his points through the most efficient shots in the game, which come at the rim, either dunking it, laying it up, getting his dunks and layups in transition, getting putbacks. All of his points come efficiently. And what obviously sets Ben Simmons apart from Kemba Walker and Trey Young is what he does on the defensive side of the ball. He is a player that can literally guard all 5 positions on the court due to his size and athleticism. Right now, he was on pace to be an all-NBA first-team defender, and in my opinion, he has Defensive Player of the Year type of potential on defense. Now, Ben Simmons is really a polarizing player. You either love him or you hate him. What really limited his ranking for me is his limitations on offense. He provides 0 floor spacing, and he kind of is limited in terms of half-court shot creation. So that's kind of why I couldn't really put him above 7. But what he brings on the defensive side of the ball is what put him over Kemba Walker and Trey Young. So Ben Simmons rounds out the 9 through 7 ranking of point guards. Let's move on to 6 through 4. So coming in at number 6, I have Kyle Lowry. Now Kyle Lowry is a player that really doesn't get enough respect around the NBA, even after winning and helping lead a Toronto Raptors team to an NBA title, he still doesn't get as much respect as I think he deserves. Kyle Lowry is averaging 20 points, 8 assists, and 5 rebounds this year. He is a great playmaker, evident in his 8 assists per game numbers, and he's been a great playmaker for the past past 4 years. I think last year he was on an upwards of 8 or 9 assists per game, and he's continued that reign this year. He's always been a great defender, even though he's undersized, he's really bulky, and before he was really a star in this league, he made his presence known on the defensive side of the ball as kind of a pest and irritant on the defensive side of the ball in that Pat Beverly type of mold, just not as psychotic. But Lowry has always brought it on the defensive side of the ball, and in my opinion this year he was on pace to being a all-defensive team member. Now Kyle Lowry is sometimes streaky, but it can't be denied that he is a great three-point shooter. He's shooting 35% from three-point land on a high clip. Now that may be around league average. Depending on what day it is, he can go from being somebody you could see winning a three-point competition to somebody who's going to consistently shoot off the side of the backboard in the NBA Finals. But yeah, I think Kyle Lowry, it's time for him to get the credit that he deserves. Even with the departure of Kawhi Leonard from the Raptors, he still is helping to lead this Toronto Raptors team to a top 3 seed in the East, and I think that needs recognition. At the 5 spot, I have another polarizing player. You either love him or you hate him. It's Russell Westbrook. Westbrook is putting up numbers this season like he tends to always do. He's not averaging a triple-double this year, but he is putting up 27 points a game, 8 boards, and 7 assists. His assist numbers were bound to take a hit coming onto the same team as James Harden. He's one of the greatest athletes in NBA history, a 6'3" guard. He's so explosive. He's one of the fastest players in the league. He's one of the greatest athletes in NBA history. He's a great playmaker for his other teammates, and that bodes well for him playing on the Rockets team that now, with moving Capella out of the lineup, Russell Westbrook is entirely surrounded with shooters. And not having Capella on the team really unlocked his offense, because now Russell Westbrook was able to basically slash to the rim whenever he wanted without having any opposing player to help on him whenever he got by his primary defender. Now, efficient and Russell Westbrook don't normally come in the same sentence, but in the last 2 months, Russell Westbrook's efficiency just took off again due to that Clint Capella trade. He basically took 0 threes, and he just went to the rim and scored whenever he wanted to. He's shooting 47% from the field, which is really good for Russell Westbrook and good for a player who's scoring 27 points per game. He's a great shot creator, not in the sense of he'll be able to score on all 3 levels, 3-point creating his own shot, mid-range creating his own shot. He's just, and this year he's been an efficient source of offense in terms of getting it for himself. And given that he's not shooting threes and teams know that he's just going to try to rim run whenever he gets the chance, he's gone to a pull-up mid-range at the elbow or a pull-up mid-range at the free throw line, and it's really started to go in for him in the past 2 months before the season was suspended. In my opinion, he's a good defender. I know a lot of people get on Westbrook for kind of his defensive mistakes off the ball. He'll sometimes lose focus, but when you're 6'3" and as strong and as athletic as Russell Westbrook, it's going to be really hard for you to beat Russell Westbrook on the ball off the dribble. And the numbers support Russell Westbrook's defense this year. The Houston Rockets defense was 3.7 points better ratings-wise with him on the floor than it was with him off the floor. Now, why I have certain players over Russell Westbrook in terms of point guards is due to his ability to be turnover prone. Even though he's a great playmaker in terms of finding the open man, he does turn the ball over a lot. He's basically averaged 5 turnovers per game for the past 3 years, and he is kind of limited in terms of space creation or spacing for your team. Like I said, his 3-point shot was broken this year. As of the Clint Capella trade, he's basically not shooting any threes at all. Now, teams are going to leave Russell Westbrook open when he's standing in the corner during a Harden isolation and Harden drives to the hole. You can help out for Russell Westbrook because people are going to dare him to shoot. So that's kind of why I have him lower than the other people on this list. Now let's get to the number 4 spot. Now this may really trigger some Westbrook supporters. this number 4 player, but I have Chris Paul at number 4. Now this really is a debate, a dichotomy between what you see in the box score and what you use or what you see with the eye test and advanced metrics that don't really go into points recorded or assists recorded or rebounds recorded. That's kind of the dichotomy between Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook. Now statistically, this is one of Chris Paul's least eye-opening years. It's kind of one of his worst years going back to his rookie year. This year he's only averaging about 17 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds, but it's what you see using your eye test and what you see in the advanced metrics that, in my opinion, put Chris Paul over Russell Westbrook this season. Now, Chris Paul is one of the best passers of all time in NBA history, and he's one of the smartest players in NBA history. And that's evident in his assist to turnover numbers in his entire career, and that's one thing that has me putting Chris Paul over Russell Westbrook. While Russell Westbrook's getting 7 assists, he's turning the ball over 4.5 times per game. Chris Paul is basically getting the same amount of assists, but he's turning the ball over at basically 2 times per game. Half of what Russell Westbrook's turnovers are. Now, Chris Paul is more of your typical skilled shot creator than what Westbrook is. Chris Paul is a player who his entire career has thrived in the mid-range, and this year has been no different. Chris Paul is basically like the best mid-range scorer in the league. In all of your distances that are considered mid-range, outside of 3 feet to 10 feet, 10 to 16 feet, and 16 feet up to the 3-point line, Chris Paul is shooting above 50% at all of those marks. Chris Paul is efficient at taking the most inefficient shot in the game, because typically when you're shooting in the mid-range, a player shooting in the mid-range off of a pick and roll when a player who's guarding him is going to be within 3 feet of you closing out and contesting your shot. But still, Chris Paul is shooting at 50% above or at all of the mid-range distances. Chris Paul has always been an elite defender his entire career. Having him like older and at the end of his prime, kind of exiting his prime, he's not going to be that elite level defender that we've basically seen his entire career, but nonetheless he is still a great defender, and he actually is a great shooter from 3. He's always been a great shooter from 3, but he's liked to shoot mid-range shots more, but he's always been an efficient shooter from three-point land, and that's what Westbrook isn't. Now, this was really the main thing that led me to putting Chris Paul above Westbrook. When I first started making my rankings, I had Westbrook above CP3, but then I looked at this one stat and I was like, there's no way I can have Westbrook above CP3 after this. In total, on offense and defense, the Thunder are a 10.1 better team by net rating with Chris Paul on the floor. The Rockets are a 1.2 rating worse with Westbrook on the floor. Now, that's not to say that Westbrook is an overall negative player, because you can't just take these advanced metrics and run away with them, because advanced metrics are not without their flaws. But I think the fact that Chris Paul is a 10-point rating player better with him on the floor but compared to Russell Westbrook on the Rockets, a team that already has James Harden, and Westbrook still has a negative 1.2 rating with him on the floor, I think that's kind of eye-opening, and that's really one thing that sets them apart, and why I had to ultimately put Chris Paul as the number 4 ranked point guard this year. 6 through 4 is done. Now let's move to 3, 2, and 1. Your cream of the crop, your top 3 point guards in the entire league this year. At number 3, I have Damian Lillard. Now, Damian Lillard, he's an elite offensive weapon. Everything offensively you would want to have in your game, Damian Lillard has it. He's averaging 28.9 points per game this year, putting him at 5th in the entire league. And for a player who's not really seen as a pass first or pass friendly player, he still gets a lion's share of the assists for his team at 8 assists per game. And Damian Lillard has established himself, I think this year he's established himself as one of the best shooters in the entire league. He's shooting 39% from the three-point land on 10 attempts per game. And most of those three-point attempts are unassisted. I saw this stat earlier, but I think 25% of his three-pointers are unassisted. And speaking of unassisted, this just speaks of his elite level, or his elite caliber of shot creation. Only 9% of his field goals are assisted. Only 9%. That's like James Harden levels. And he's on this hapless Trailblazers team who's been riddled with injuries. Damian Lillard has really had to put the offense on his back this year, and his numbers have shown it. So, great offensive weapon, scoring the ball himself, but he does it efficiently, and he doesn't really have much help, doesn't have many people that are creating shots for him, and he creates a lot of shot attempts and a lot of points for his teammates, getting 8 assists per game. And a lot of people, a lot of former Trailblazers have said it, a lot of current Trailblazers have said it, a lot of players in general have said it. They've said that Damian Lillard is one of the best leaders that they've ever played with. And that is something that you want to have in somebody you view as your franchise player, somebody that can be a leader of men, and Damian Lillard is that. On the defensive side of the ball, Damian Lillard is not much of a plus. He's really a mediocre defender to subpar. I don't think he's a horrible defender. I don't think he's a liability, but he is an average defender. He has some of the worst defensive ratings in the league, but I mean, that just speaks to the entire Portland Trailblazers team. Everybody on that team has a bad defensive rating, and I don't think you can single out Dame for that. So yeah, Damian Lillard at number 3. At number 2, I have a sophomore phenom who's asserted himself as one of the best players in the league, definitely a top 10 player in the league this year. That's the wonder kid, the wonder boy, Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic, like Damian Lillard, is an elite offensive weapon. He's averaging 28.7 points per game, which puts him at 6th in the NBA behind Damian Lillard. But here's what sets Luka apart from Damian Lillard. Luka Doncic literally has the best offensive rating in the entire league. He's number 1 in offensive rating. Like Damian Lillard, he is an elite shot creator. Only 23% of his three-point attempts or three-point makes are assisted. And he is a better playmaker than Damian Lillard, averaging 9 assists per game. He has those LeBron-esque type of passes where he drives, sees the help defender come from the corner, and he can go up for a shot, but at the last second he can change and just dot somebody in the corner. He has those LeBron type of passes that Damian Lillard just doesn't really have in his bag. And I'm not saying that to really speak down on Damian Lillard. I'm saying that to really speak to the praises of Luka Doncic. Another thing that sets Luka Doncic apart from Damian Lillard is the fact that the Dallas Mavericks are winning. At the time of suspension, the Dallas Mavericks had 40 wins in the Western Conference. That put them in 7th in the Western Conference, so they were actually a playoff team, while Damian Lillard was tied for 9th position in the Western Conference at 29 wins. Now, a lot of what Damian Lillard had to do with, in terms of team success or lack thereof, had to do with injuries. Portland was an injury-riddled team. Yusuf Nurkic, John Collins, Rodney Hood, all 3 players that was really a part of that core last year that went on that playoff run. They all got injured this year. Nurkic was out from last year, and he's been out the entire season this year. Zach Collins got injured within the first 5 games of the year, and Rodney Hood got injured early on in the year. That's obviously going to hurt Portland's team success, but I can't hold Dallas Mavericks, their actual team success, against Luka Doncic. I have to reward him for that. So not only is Luka Doncic literally holding the highest offensive rating in the league, not only is his team winning games as a sophomore, he's leading a team to a winning record as a sophomore. He's also leading the best offensive team in NBA history. He's leading the best offense in NBA history. The Dallas Mavericks were on pace to have the highest recorded offensive rating in NBA history per 100 possessions. And I don't know if the NBA stat keepers are going to count this year due to suspension, but the difference between them and the next highest offensive rating team in NBA history was 7 points. So they literally blew the next highest offensive rating team in NBA history out the water by 7 points. And I have to reward Luka Doncic for that. And Luka Doncic was an MVP caliber player. He was an MVP candidate for, I would say, 75% of the year before their record started to tail off. So I have to reward Luka Doncic for that and give him the number 2 point guard spot in the entire league. Now you're probably thinking, Ryan, who could possibly be above Luka and Dame for top point guards this year? Who could that possibly be? Well, the answer to that question is a GOAT. One of the GOATs. He may be your GOAT. I don't know if he's my GOAT yet, but number 1 point guard in the league this year, LeBron James. Now you're probably thinking, Ryan, this dude is 6'8", 270 pounds. How is he a point guard? Well, according to Basketball Reference, he has played 53% of his minutes at point guard, making him a point guard. So LeBron James is counting as a point guard. I don't know if the NBA is going to view him as a point guard when it comes to naming the NBA All-NBA teams. But for right now, I'm counting him as a point guard because I've seen this Lakers team play. Avery Bradley is not a point guard. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is not a point guard. They're the 2 wings in the starting lineup while LeBron is actually running point guard this year. I don't think I have to say much for why LeBron is number 1. He's literally one of the greatest players of all time. In my opinion, he's the greatest passer of all time. He's definitely the greatest passer I've ever seen. And he's showing that. He's averaging an upwards of 10 assists per game this year, something he's never done his entire career, but he's doing that this year, leading the NBA in assists. And the guy is virtually unstoppable one-on-one. He's too big, too skilled. Damian Lillard and Luka Doncic, I think, can be slowed down a bit more than you can slow down LeBron. LeBron is still going to get his no matter what. Even if you put Kawhi Leonard on him, he'll still find a way to get 25 points and 8 assists. I think if you put Kawhi Leonard exclusively on Luka Doncic, I think he would limit Luka. Paul George, your elite defenders, I think, can do a good job of limiting Luka Doncic and Damian Lillard. LeBron James is still going to get his no matter who you put on him. And LeBron James this year is bringing it on the defensive side of the ball, something he hasn't done in the regular season in what seems like forever. He normally saves himself for the postseason to really become that all-time great defender. But this year he's bringing it on the defensive side of the ball in the regular season. The lasting impression that we had of LeBron James' defense is those memes of him not carrying on defense in the 2018-2019 season.
Blasphemous!
Oh my God!
What the fuck?
Which was really disappointing for him, the entire Lakers team, and disappointing especially when you look at LeBron James' effort on the defensive side of the ball. But this year he's really brought it on defense, and that's really made me happy as a Laker fan, and just as an NBA fan in general. And that defensive effort of LeBron is supported through the numbers. The Lakers, who are already a superior, one of the elite defensive teams in the league, they are 5 defensive rating points better with LeBron James on the floor. And to speak to his defensive praises, I've seen 80% of the Lakers games this year. You're not really scoring on him unless you are an elite caliber player, unless you're Kawhi, James Harden, Jason Tatum. If you're an elite one-on-one type of scorer, you're not really scoring on him. But when I speak of Luka Doncic and Damian Lillard, like average, or not average, good one-on-one players can score on them. Like from time to time, Fred VanVleet may give Damian Lillard some buckets, or Chris Middleton may give Luka Doncic buckets. Chris Middleton ain't really giving LeBron buckets. You gotta be Kawhi, like I said, you gotta be an elite caliber player, cream of the crop to really score on LeBron. And that's what sets apart LeBron from everybody else. So here are my top 10 point guards in the league. When it's all said and done, here's just a complete list. I had a virtual tie at number 10 between De'Aaron Fox, John Morant, and D'Angelo Russell, but with me giving the ultimate edge to De'Aaron Fox. Number 9, Trey Young. Number 8, Kemba Walker. Number 7, Ben Simmons. Number 6, Kyle Lowry. Number 5, Russell Westbrook. Number 4, Chris Paul. Number 3, Damian Lillard. Number 2, Luka Doncic. And number 1, LeBron James. So there you have it, my 2019-2020 top 10 point guards list. And yeah, let me know if you agree with anything, disagree with anything. Don't just dislike the video because I shat on one of your favorite players. I try not to really critique players. I try to just praise more players, or praise players more than others. I'm not really in the business of talking down on nobody. Yeah, with that said, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. Thanks for watching. And until next time, it's been your boy IB. I'll catch y'all later. Peace.